Welcome to Backyard Oasis, a podcast designed by and for older adults living in the beautiful Pioneer Valley of Western Massachusetts and produced in the tech studios at Greenfield Community College in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Backyard Oasis reaches out to older adults who seek knowledge to help them live more thoughtfully, healthily, and happily, who hope to inspire others with their ideas, and who serve their communities in the interest of the greater good.
Hello, I'm Denise Schwartz, your host. It's November leading into December. Now, for many, that's a time of planning for holidays that bring us feelings of joy and also sadness. It's not easy to think about feeling joyful sometimes. Sometimes when you assess the state of the world or the state of your own self that is growing older, it takes some time to wake up joy. Our guest today hopes to inspire us to reach for more joy in our lives. She's Dr. Pat Romney. She's an 80-year-old writer, psychologist, and leadership coach. She leads workshops on aging with joy. And she is dedicated to bringing more joy into the lives of all humans, especially those who are older adults. She says she has always loved older people. And she also said, lo and behold, she's become one. Haven't we all? So, hi, Pat.
Hi, Denise.
I'm really glad you're here. It's a time when I think we really need to learn to understand what joy can do for us and how we can grab onto it when not everything is so good. So I hope that's where we're going to go today. But so I've been reading a little bit more about joy, and I've noticed that many folks who've studied and written about it have noted that joy and sorrow are deeply connected. Both are related to what matters most to us. That kept coming up in what I was reading. What matters most to you is what brings you joy. Now, I remember in high school when I first read Khalil Gibran's poem called On Joy and Sorrow, and I know you've told me you've read that too. That poem meant so much to me back then that I taped it to my bedroom wall, and I have it taped to my office wall today. There are two lines in the poem that struck me, and they still do. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to read those two because I really love this and I like to think about what it means. So these are the two lines. When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is now giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again into your heart, and you shall see that in truth, you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Pat, I love that word, delight, and I think we can connect that to joy in a lot of ways. So let's talk about joy rather than sorrow, even though one often leads to the other. Okay?
That sounds good.
Okay. So you say you started to think about joy back in the 1990s. What caused you to do that?
Well, I was beginning to meditate, and I came upon the work of Eknath Easwaran, who's written a book called God Makes the Rivers to Flow. And his approach to meditation is to memorize prayers and poems and to recite those to yourself.
Oh.
And so I found this poem by St. Augustine called Entering into Joy. And the poem begins, imagine if all the tumult of the body were to quiet down, along with all our busy thoughts of earth, sea, and air, if the very world should stop and the mind cease thinking about itself, go beyond itself, and be quite still. And he goes on, St. Augustine being a Catholic leader of the church, and it ends with, would this not be what is written in Scripture? Enter ye into the joy of our Lord. Well, I'm a lapsed Catholic. I went all the way through Catholic college. So this really spoke to me because here I was in my late 50s with 3 children, 2 aging parents, more jobs than I want to talk about right now. And I needed to take that deep breath and to imagine that there was a place of joy in the silence and in the peace that I read about in this poem.
Did you find it?
Little by little. Some years later, I read Book of Joy by Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama, and there I found it again. And after reading that book, I began to do some work with some colleagues of mine on joy and presenting joy. So I absolutely have found joy, particularly at 80. It's the most joyous time of my life.
Well, I want to hear how you allow others to find joy. And I also would like to know what your daily routine is like and how you find joy every day. Can we do those two things?
Sure. So how I help others to find joy. The most important component, I think, is connection.
Yes, that's what.
So, I'm in several groups with people, some of which I've started. One of them is our cul-de-sac book club, which I've told you about.
Right.
We meet roughly about once a month, and I said to our neighbors who, 3 other couples, we're all in the senior years. We've known each other for years, but not well. But now most of us are retired. We're home all the time. So we meet once a month. And I said, why don't we read memoirs? And someone else in the circle said, great idea. Why don't we make it a dinner? So one family brings the appetizer, one family brings the salad, one family brings the dinner, one family brings the dessert. And we read memoirs. We've gotten to know each other so well, to connect, to help each other out when one couple is away or somebody had a knee surgery. They drove my husband, to his physical therapy. Our neighbors did. So we began to help each other, and we connected in that way. I also have another group that's called the Positivity Pod, and that is a group of 5 of us. I'm the oldest, and our youngest is in her early 50s. We also meet weekly, and we focus on positivity and joy, and we've offered workshops together on that topic.
What do you mean you focus on it?
We, following the work of, I'm going to blank on his name right now.
That's
but
okay, we'll come back.
Yeah, but we follow this work called Positive Intelligence, and we always start with a meditation, then we do a check-in, and then we have a topic that one of us will decide upon, whoever's leading that morning. So we meet for 45 minutes every Wednesday morning before work, and we are together. And we share our crises, we share our joys, we share how to center ourselves and to move forward in the world, and we always remember that we're together.
So I'm thinking that togetherness is sort of what we've been talking about in the last episode that we did. We were talking about neighborhoods and being neighbors, and we're really talking about the same thing, this connected thing, and it does work. But you've set it up so that in several of your groups you get together on a regular basis. Now that seems to be something that you can only do when you have a lot of time. So this could be the time when you're going to find joy because you have time to connect and do that. But how do you take the topics that everyone brings to, say, the group that you just talked about, that bring you to joy? I mean, are the topics, what are they?
Oh, anything and everything.
But how does any kind of topic bring you to joy?
I think joy comes from the connection with one another and the support that we have for each other. And I would quibble a little bit with certainly we have more time. I still work, and my work brings me great joy. So I don't have lots of time. But I think back to when I was 17 in my first job for Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, when every Friday afternoon a group of us would go out bowling. They would go drinking. I didn't drink at that time. So they'd go for a drink or else they'd drink at the bowling alley. And it was every week. There's something about the routine, the expectation. My husband and I on Friday nights now, this started during COVID, we go out to dinner every single Friday night. So in a week of stress, of pressure, of, work to be done and family to be taken care of, we can always look forward to Friday when we take a deep breath and we just spend time together. So I think something about routine helps us to find joy.
Structure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if I was a person who came to you and said, "Oh, Pat, help me find some joy in my life," how would we start?
Well, I'd want to know what you love. what you care about, what matters to you.
Right.
I'd want to know about your family. I'd want to know certainly about your connections, who you're connecting with, how often, whether those connections bring you joy, whether they're positive and uplifting. That's how we'd start.
And you said that there's some activities that people who come to you to find joy that they can be involved in. There were activities and attitudes.
Well, the attitude, you read a lot about this in the Book of Joy. There are particular attitudes like perspective. I was writing about this yesterday in my blog. One of my family members is going through a lot of difficult moments.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, with them, supporting them, a little bit like, oh, I'm too old for this, too many problems. And then I thought, wait a minute. I have perspective. After living 80 years, I know that we go through tough times.
Oh, yeah.
And we can come out of tough times.
Right.
And I can bring that, I can offer that to my family members, that in my support. So how I look at things. My husband was saying to me the other day, it all depends on what you choose to focus on, right? Are you going to focus on the troubles and let yourself be buried in them and just stew in what's wrong? Or are you going to say, boy, I have gratitude even for my troubles because I'm still alive, I'm still able to move, I'm still able to think.
But do you find yourself, and do your students, or do you call them students, people who come to you to help find joy, do you find that sometimes you have to force yourself to have that attitude? I mean, it can't always come easy.
But I don't think force isn't the word that I would use.
What word would you use?
I would say invite myself. I want to invite myself to look at this situation differently. I want to invite myself to think about the possibility that emerges from a problem. And you and I were talking earlier about hope. I want to invite myself to find where's the hope in this? Where's the lesson? Right? What can I be grateful for? That's the other attitude that I find. The two attitudes I want to access most often are gratitude and humility. Gratitude for being alive, gratitude for being reasonably well, gratitude for having a home and a bed to sleep in.
Absolutely. But there are times when things aren't great in your life, and it seems so hard to have that kind of attitude. I'm not saying, you're feeling depressed or anything. Well, maybe you are. So how do you grab that and make it be authentic?
I have done it through my reading, through my regular practices, through my connections with others. I know there are always people there to support me,
right,
that I can vent and I can see the other side of. So it's cultivating positive practices.
I guess knowing that other people do that, okay, other people take a time in their life that might not be so great and say, no, wait a minute, I'm going to look at where I can find the best part of this or what I can grow from. Knowing that lots of people do that kind of gives you a sense that it is authentic enough, that it's not artificial. When I know that other people are feeling the same way I do, that's the connection thing, you really do feel better about your problems or whatever you're facing.
Yes.
It's that old misery loves company thing, but I hate to say it that way because it sounds so sad. But that really, I think, does help when you find out, oh, yeah, you're feeling the same way I am. Okay, this is what you did when that happened to you. Now I feel the same way. I feel a little better. It's finding someone who's kind of like you in a way.
I 100% agree with that. And the misery loves company, I don't know so much. We may come together in our misery for certain.
Right.
But if we stay in our misery, we're not helped. And if we're around somebody who's miserable all the time, then we want to turn the corner and find somebody else to be
right,
to be with. So if we can come together in our misery and uplift each other.
Well, you know what I find happens if I have a lot of girlfriends, and my husband and we talk too. I have a lot of friends, and if we start talking about the thing that's bothering us right now, the thing, maybe we don't feel well. And that person says, we do the organ recital. Oh, my liver hurts. Oh, my head hurts. Oh, my blah, blah. And we start doing that. And then I find, what happens? I started laughing when you were talking about it. I find that we get to the point where we just look at each other and just start to kind of laugh because in a way, it's kind of funny.
It is.
We're all facing this stuff, and especially for older adults. I know people say, oh no, are we just going to talk about our medical stuff? Well, let's face it. It is a really big part of aging. And so when you talk with older adults in particular, how do you talk to them about the medical stuff that can be so bad and be so serious and still encourage them to find joy in their lives?
So I'm thinking about 3 different scenarios. If I'm talking with a therapy client of mine, I'm going to listen as long as they need to talk about whatever the physical problems or emotional problems they have and what they're going through. And I'm going to be as empathic as I possibly can. And at some point, I'm going to invite them to wonder, is anything good happening? Is anything positive happening right now? Is there hope for this treatment? Is there anything that you can hold on to that gives you a moment of joy or relief or, again, of hope?
And do you find that people always are able to find that moment of peace or hope, or are they not?
I think many people, most people are. Even if it's who's holding you through that, right?
Yes.
Who's holding your hand, who's standing by your bedside, the nurse who comes to clean. You know, I worked for many years in a nursing home when I switched my practice to working with elders. And the people that elders in nursing homes love the most are the aides.
Oh, why is that?
Because they clean them.
Oh,
They're
right.
in the
They're
most intimate
touching
ways.
them.
They're touching them. They're being with them. They're caring for them. So even that is a moment of pleasure. Another scenario I think about, though, is when I go out. I told you my husband and I go out every Friday night, and sometimes we go with another couple.
Sure.
Or, a couple of couples. And I notice that my elder friends will often start with the scenario, the organ recital,
The organ
as
recital.
you said. I interrupt that. Not to say don't do that, but I will start talking about positive things because I feel that in that scenario, we're out to dinner, we're to have a good time. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the wonderful movie we saw or the play that we went to or the grandchildren who are growing so beautifully. So in that scenario, I will try to help make that organ recital a shorter recital.
That's a really good idea. I wanted to see if you could address something that I found here. Let me see. I took off my glasses and I'm not sure I can read it. I wonder if you could do this. I thought these 3 things that tell us about ways that we can build joy into our lives kind of made sense. We've talked about one of them. One is grow in authenticity and live more into one's strengths. So we're going to talk about that. Grow in depth of relationships and contributing to others. We've spent a lot of time talking about this. This one, number 3, I really want to think about this. Live more aligned with one's ethical and spiritual ideals.
I love it.
I do too.
I think of principally the work of Martin Seligman, who's the father of positive psychology. For anyone who's interested, go to VIA.org, virtuesinaction.org, and it's also VIA.com. Okay. And you can take an assessment that will help you see what are your major strengths and virtues.
Oh, I love that.
Right. So mine is zest. That's my top.
I don't know. Having just met you, I have talked, a little bit about you. I don't know. Zest. You did say you're a party girl.
Yes. So just knowing what your virtues are. So I think about that's one place, and I also want to mention the COPES assessment, COPPES, which is an assessment for elders, which will it's a kind of a checklist of what are the things that you are doing. Are you being with people? Are you walking in nature? And they'll give you a whole idea of the things that you could be doing to increase your joy.
How do you find that?
It's COPPES. Google it, and it will come up.
Okay, that's great to know.
The other thing about Marty Seligman is he is the founder of positive psychology, and he's been studying happiness for years. And he has 3 levels of happiness that he describes. The first is the pleasant life, where we're enjoying ourselves. We're going out to dinner, we're having parties, whatever it is,
Sure.
being with friends. The second level that he talks about is the good life, being a decent person, doing good things. And the third thing he talks about, which he calls the highest level of happiness, and I equate this level with joy, is living a meaningful life. That you are serving your fellow human beings. You are making a difference in whatever tiny way it can be to improve the lives of people around you.
How does that work? I mean, I know that works. We do feel good when we do something for somebody else. It's so basic. I mean, didn't Mom and Dad tell you that was what you were supposed to do? How does that little magic thing happen that when you reach out to somebody and help them in any way, everybody feels good?
Yes.
What happens?
Human connection. We are human connectors. I love Vivek Murthy's work on connection in his book, Together. I recommend it to people. We like to be together. We like to heal each other. We like to embrace each other emotionally as well as physically. You're doing it, living a meaningful life with this podcast.
I hope so.
So, and I think that must give you joy.
Oh, an incredible amount of joy. Maybe not as much as when I'm dancing, but almost as much. I wanted to, I know we have to wind down soon, but I just want to talk about living aligned with one's ethical and spiritual ideals. Can you address that in any way?
Well, I think that's what a meaningful life is all about. I'm going to go back to Cicero.
Okay.
Cicero, before the Christian era, was writing about in a book, in an essay called Disinectitude on Old Age. He says the way to live is to live ethically.
Yes.
To live so that you are setting a legacy for the future. And that knowing at the end of life, or even toward the end of life, that you have done well, you have done good, you have lived ethically, is the greatest joy that anyone could have.
You know what I love? I love that you said live so that you are, I wrote it down, doing a legacy. What is it?
Leaving a legacy.
Leaving a legacy.
Yes, a legacy.
I think people used to think about that more. Maybe we don't do that so much anymore.
Well, I was talking to my daughter, and we were talking about her dad, and I said, what makes him happy? He said, Papi lives for the people.
Huh.
He lives for the people, right? He cares about social justice. He cares about equality. That's what he lives for. And he said, my daughter said to me, and Mom, you are such an inspiration because you have worked your life in such a way that you are living in your older years with joy. Both of those are legacies. They're different legacies. I hope I've done some good, too, in social justice ways. But they're both legacies to live for our children and for the others that we meet and connect with.
I love that idea of legacy. I think I'd like to explore that more. Maybe that's something we could talk about in another time. Legacy, what we leave behind for others.
One other thing I'd want to say before we close.
Sure.
Extremely important in your elder years is to connect with young people. My husband and I have a younger crowd. They're not so young now. They're in their 50s, but we've been friends with them for 20 years. And they give us so much life and joy. My positivity pod that I talked about.
Right.
There are two, one person in her 40s, one in her 50s. Young people.
So go out and make younger friends.
Make young friends. It is so helpful. And we found them through our love of dance. We went to parties, and all of a sudden we had a group of friends.
I know. Dance does work. I did an episode on that.
Oh,
we should
great.
listen. We should all go dancing together. What do you think?
That would be great.
Well, look, before we actually do go dancing together, how can we leave today? What do you want to say so that whoever's listening can think about it today and build some joy into his or her life?
So I want to offer you the idea that joy is possible, even as we age, that we can overcome the troubles of our youth, our past, if we have them, and that we do that principally through connection, through gratitude, and through looking to live a meaningful life and a joyful life. Look for the fun, too.
Oh, yeah, we have to have fun. Sometimes it's not so easy to find, but eventually it does creep back into your life if you let it. Okay, before we go, you had a story about one of the people you worked with. It was a man who said something really wonderful that I want to remember. Go ahead, tell that story.
So this man, as a client of mine, is an artist, and he wrote an article that got published, and he was very excited about it. And he came in and he was talking about what he was going to do next and all his future projects. And I said, gee, you're really bringing a lot of joy today. Where is that coming from? And he said, I feel young. I have a future.
Oh, my gosh.
And as you pointed out, it's all about hope in that case. He was setting up his next projects, and his life, he's 88 years old. All of a sudden, the light was back in his eyes.
He has something to live for now.
That's right.
That's what we have to find, something to live for. We have to have hope, and we're going to search out joy. It is a good time of year for joy. We're going to be singing all those beautiful songs of the season that bring us a lot of joy. I'll remember you when I'm singing them. I'll remember you when I'm dancing. Maybe we can go for a walk sometime, or maybe we can have our own Positivity Pod. What do you think?
That sounds great, Denise. Thank you for having me on today.
It was so good to meet you. I'm smiling. I'm
Same
feeling
here.
a little joyful, I think.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
This concludes today's podcast. We're always looking for new ideas, so feel free to reach out to Judy Raper, Associate Dean of Community Engagement at Greenfield Community College at 413-775-1819. If you have an idea you'd love to share. Special thanks to the creators of Backyard Oasis, Denise Schwartz, Chad Fuller, Dennis Lee, and Christine Copeland. Have a great day.